This is an extract from the Leader podcast by the Evening Standard, hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for us on your podcast provider. The Chinatown you know is one of London's busiest and noisiest places. It's all crowds, music and vendors selling street foods from stalls and shop windows. This was how it sounded in January this year, when coronavirus was just something people were beginning to hear about. But the Chinatown you know isn't there anymore. Even after lockdown restrictions were lifted, the streets that make up that normally bustling quarter are almost empty during the day. Clearly there are no tourists, but Londoners themselves aren't coming into the city, and an exclusive poll for the Evening Standard shows lots of them have no intention of doing so anytime soon. So that's fewer people buying lunches, or even just popping into a newsagent for a bottle of juice. And our editorial column is warning that's a dangerous scenario.
Imagine a disaster film where a boat is stranded in a river, drifting towards a huge waterfall. Those trapped on board know it is coming. The roar gets louder. They struggle to save themselves. What happens next? It's a bit like that with the jobs disaster being caused by coronavirus. For months we've known that a deep recession is on its way, but quick work by the Treasury has held back the pain. But not for much longer. Our exclusive poll suggests more than a third of London commuters who are now working from home do not expect to return to their offices before Christmas. But if people stay away from central London, they also stay away from all the things which link us together to make this city a powerhouse. They won't be there to eat out, shop, pop into a gallery or have a drink after work. Everything shrinks and there is a price to pay in jobs. How do we stop the cities emptying and the jobs being lost? Confidence. How do we get it? It will take clear rules to show that office work can be safe. Confidence breeds hope, and thanks to hope, we don't yet know how this disaster film ends.
Well, we're expecting Boris Johnson to announce this week that people should be going back to their desks, but with our poll showing 8 out of 10 saying not feeling safe in an office space is a key factor in determining whether they will return, the Prime Minister may have his work cut out. Our consumer business editor Jonathan Prynn is here, and Jonathan, it's not going to be easy getting people out of the house and back into the office, is it?
There's no huge enthusiasm, I have to say. There's no stampede for people to get back onto crowded trains and commute back to their offices as they did before the pandemic. The figures we've seen from polling that we're running today suggests that even by September, possibly only around 60% of workers will be coming back into central London, rising to around 2/3 by Christmas and possibly 80% going into 2021. But that still means that a third of London office workers, commuters, will not be coming back to their desks by the end of the year, which is an incredible number and a huge amount of spending power that will be lost to the central London economy.
Yeah, the issues around the central London economy are becoming really quite stark. We've been speaking to people in Chinatown, which is a quarter of the city, which is in dire straits right now.
It is. It's been absolutely terrible for Chinatown. They went into this before the rest of London because people started not to visit Chinatown when the first reports started emerging from Wuhan about how bad this epidemic was. And for whatever irrational reasons, tourists and visitors started not to go into Chinatown, and they saw it in their trading figures as early as sort of late January, early February, when sales crashed really, really quickly. And they just have never picked up. And what they're saying to us, what the traders are saying to us, is that even after the reopening of restaurants and shops and so on over the last few weeks, they haven't seen the response that they were hoping for. They haven't seen the recovery get underway. Footfall is, in some cases, down 80, 90%. And it's just potentially devastating for an area of London that's usually so alive with visitors and tourists.
And is this because, or at least partly because, there are just fewer Londoners themselves, not just tourists, but actual Londoners going into the city centre, needing to pick up lunch, needing to get sandwiches, just that kind of random everyday footfall appears to have gone.
It really has, and I don't think anyone really appreciated just how delicate that sort of economic ecosystem was that had built up to serve the needs of literally hundreds of thousands of, well-paid, in many cases, commuters who brought their spending power into central London every single day and consumed coffees, sandwiches, pints after work, meals in the evening, theatre tickets, all the rest of it, all that day-to-day expenditure which they brought into central London, which has now dried up. And I don't think anyone had quite appreciated just how dependent so much of the central London economy was on that sort of daily mobile army of people coming in to spend their hard-earned wages.
Yeah, it's just the adding up of that £3 on a sandwich, a couple of quid on a coffee every day, isn't it? That build up to a huge part of London's daily economy. But can we make people go back? Can we persuade people to go back? What do we do?
Well, there's two major obstacles that are going to make it really, really hard. One is that there seems to be no huge appetite for people to go back in anytime soon. They're worried, they're scared. They've worked out that they can work from home. But also, there's a very practical issue. Many offices will only be able to operate at around 30 to 40% capacity and have any chance of maintaining social distancing. So even if 100% of people said, yeah, right, let's go back, probably less than half of them would actually be able to get into their offices. There's a particular problem with tall buildings and lifts. We've had one estimate today suggesting that in some of the big skyscrapers in the city and Docklands, the queue for the lifts where social distancing would have to be maintained could go for more than a mile. For people just waiting to get up to the 35th floor or whatever, where their desk is.